Have you ever sat across from someone and felt as if you already knew what they were going to say? That flicker in their eyes before they speak, that slight change in the rhythm of their breathing. Sometimes it's almost as if their thoughts spill into the silence between you, not as words, but as a quiet vibration. This is where the idea of reading someone's mind begins, not in fantasy, but in perception. The mind, after all, is not a locked room. It's a field, subtle, energetic, and always communicating. We think language is the bridge between people. But long before we spoke, we listened to tone, to gesture, to presence. Human beings evolved not just to understand words, but to sense intentions. And in that sensing lies the doorway to what many call mind reading. Imagine you're in an elevator. A stranger walks in. No words are spoken. Yet instantly, before logic, you feel something. A tension, a warmth, a subtle unease. Where does that information come from? It's your subconscious scanning microsignals, body posture, pupil dilation, muscle tension, even electromagnetic rhythms of the brain that subtly interact. Science calls it empathic resonance. Philosophy calls it the silent language of consciousness. When you read someone's mind, you're not stealing thoughts. You're aligning to their frequency, sensing what their emotional state, intentions, and mental imagery feel like. Now close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You're sitting across from a person you've never met. Both of you are silent. No movement, no speech, just breath. In that silence, notice what your body feels. Do you feel tightness in the chest? Calmness? Your nervous system mirrors through a network of mirror neurons, the biological bridge between your mind and theirs. Every emotion you see, you simulate. When someone smiles, your brain's emotional centers activate as if you were smiling. When someone is anxious, your own heart rate slightly syncs with theirs. We don't just observe each other, we absorb each other. The deeper truth is this. We live in a shared emotional field, a collective energy web. You can read others because, on some level, you are them. Throughout history, monks, psychologists, and mystics have trained this sensitivity. They practice stillness, not to silence the mind, but to hear others more clearly. Because to read minds, the first step is not to look outward, but inward. You cannot hear another's inner world if yours is filled with noise. To perceive the subtle, you must become subtle. So, begin with awareness. Notice your own heartbeat, your breath, the space between your thoughts. Every still moment increases your sensitivity to others. As you refine your attention, small cues begin to reveal enormous truths. A pause before someone speaks, hesitation. A quick glance away, uncertainty. A prolonged exhale, relief. You begin to read the energy behind their actions, not just their expressions. But beyond body language lies the deeper layer, intent. Intent is the soul's motion, the silent direction of thought. When you learn to sense intent, you're entering the true art of mind reading. Let's try an exercise. Imagine a friend standing in front of you. You look into their eyes, calm, still present. Now silently think a single word, peace. Feel that word. Don't just say it in your mind. Breathe it through your heart. You might notice their breathing slightly deepen. Their eyes soften. That's not coincidence. Energy follows intention. Mind reading, in its truest form, is mind connection, a dialogue beyond speech. Many ancient cultures knew this. They called it telepathic empathy. But in modern science, we see hints of it in mirror neuron synchronization and limbic resonance. Your brain literally echoes the emotional rhythm of the person near you. Now, imagine this phenomenon extended beyond two people, to rooms, to crowds. Have you ever entered a place and immediately felt the mood before anyone spoke? That's the field, the invisible climate of collective emotion. Your ability to read minds depends on how tuned your inner instrument is. A distracted, reactive mind picks up static. A calm, still mind perceives clearly. Meditation, therefore, is not escape, it's tuning. The more silence you cultivate, the more transparent others become to you. Because you begin to listen between words, to what is not said. In that space, you start to realize thoughts are not isolated events. They ripple, they echo. Somewhere between psychology and metaphysics lies a truth that all minds may be small eddies in a single ocean of awareness. So, when you read someone's mind, you're not decoding them like a puzzle. You're listening to the ocean that connects you both. And yet, this art carries a paradox. The clearer you see others, the more you see yourself. Because what you perceive in another is filtered through your own emotional lens. Your fears, projections, desires, all shape how you interpret others' energy. To read minds without distortion, you must first dissolve your own illusions. That's why true mental perception begins with humility. Not, I know what you're thinking, but I can feel what you might be feeling. Real mind reading is empathy refined into awareness. Pause, slow, ambient tone deepens. Now imagine yourself walking through a crowded street. Dozens of minds, each with their own rhythm, emotion, and focus. What if you could pause the world for a second and feel all of them? The collective heartbeat of humanity? Would it overwhelm you or awaken you? Maybe both. Because to read the minds of others is to open yourself completely to their chaos, their pain, their beauty. And that's why this ability, though mystical, must be anchored in compassion. Empathy without grounding leads to confusion. But empathy with awareness leads to connection. And connection is what we all seek, even beneath words, beneath masks, beneath silence. You've just begun to glimpse the surface of this mystery. The mind is not a prison of thoughts. It's a mirror reflecting every other mind. In the stillness between your thoughts, the reflection becomes clear. Perhaps you've already begun to notice it. The strange dance that happens between minds. How emotions seem to travel, unspoken. How tension in one person quietly ripples into another. It's almost invisible, yet undeniable. This is the hidden current of human communication. And if you pay close enough attention, it starts to reveal patterns. Every mind speaks, even in silence. A small movement of the eyes may whisper hesitation. A subtle tightening of the shoulders may confess fear. And even when the body is still, energy moves faintly, rhythmically, like the pulse of an unseen tide. To read someone's mind is not to invade their privacy, but to perceive the echo of their inner weather. Their thoughts form clouds, emotions form wind, and intentions form gravity. And you, the observer, are the sky, holding all of it without judgment. But to reach this level of perception, you must learn the language of stillness. Stillness is not absence of motion. It's heightened awareness in slow time. It's when you start to hear the subtleties that most people rush past. Every time you breathe consciously, your nervous system resets. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of empathy and awareness, begins to synchronize with the emotional signals around you. What you once thought was intuition is, in truth, the precision of presence. Here is a small experiment. Sit across from someone you know. No words, no effort, just awareness. Now, without looking directly into their eyes, sense what emotion they are carrying beneath the surface. Is it sadness disguised as calm, anxiety masked as chatter, or peace radiating from silence? Trust your first perception, not the loudest thought, but the quiet knowing beneath it. That knowing comes from deep synchrony, a resonance between two nervous systems, two conscious fields aligning for a moment in time. In that still resonance, you are not two, but one. Science is only beginning to glimpse this. Studies in neuroscience show how human brains can align, literally synchronize their electrical rhythms when in deep rapport. Our physiology echoes our empathy. Connection, it seems, is measurable. But what can't be measured is the mystery that flows through it, the part that feels like intuition, presence, or even love. To read minds at that level is to understand that we are not separate. We are mirrors, endlessly reflecting one another's light and shadow. When you sense another person's emotion, you are reading a reflection of yourself in them. And that realization changes everything. Because the more you learn to perceive others, the more you must confront your own hidden emotions. What you judge in others, you suppress in yourself. What you understand in others, you have already healed within. This is why many who walk this path, psychologists, empaths, meditators, eventually realize that the deepest mind reading is self-reading. When you master that, others become transparent, not because you control them, but because you've learned to listen without distortion. It's not manipulation, it's communion. It's what happens when two consciousnesses stop trying to protect themselves and simply exist together without agenda. Now imagine this scene. You're in a quiet cafe. Someone across the room glances up. For a second, your eyes meet. You feel a flicker, an unspoken connection. No words, no story, just awareness. You both look away, pretending it didn't happen. But something exchanged, something beyond thought. What was that? It wasn't telepathy in the sci-fi sense. It was resonance, the subtle handshake of two awarenesses. And if you learn to sense that energy, it's as if you can feel thoughts before they arrive, emotions before they surface. Mind reading, then, becomes less of a trick and more of an art. The art of perceiving before thinking. In meditation, you can practice this by observing your own thoughts as if they belong to someone else. Watch them arise. Watch them fade. Notice that the you observing is not the thought. It's awareness itself. Now, when you look at someone else, that same awareness allows you to perceive their mental patterns without getting lost in them. You see the storm, but remain the sky. This is emotional mastery. It's the difference between reacting to someone's mind and reflecting it clearly. And it's here that the practice becomes spiritual. Because to read minds, you must step beyond the boundaries of self. You must dissolve the illusion of separateness long enough to feel another as yourself. At first, this can be overwhelming, like stepping into an ocean of other people's emotions. But as your awareness grows steadier, you begin to float rather than drown. You sense, you understand, and you let go. The paradox of mind reading is that the more clearly you see others, the less you try to. It happens not by effort, but by surrender. To know another's mind, you must silence your own. Soft piano note lingers. Distant heartbeat tone fades into warmth. And then comes the question, a quiet, haunting one. If you could truly read someone's mind, would you want it? Would you want to know what they hide? What they fear? What they wish they could say, but never will? Would you want to feel every vibration, every ache, every passing doubt that fills the space between their words? Perhaps not, because the mind is a fragile landscape, and to see it too clearly is to lose the illusion of separation we call privacy. Maybe that's why the universe gave us partial vision, empathy but not omniscience. Enough to connect, not enough to collapse. And maybe the purpose of learning to read minds is not to uncover secrets, but to awaken compassion. To realize that everyone you meet carries storms you cannot see, thoughts they cannot control, emotions they cannot name. When you sense that truth, your perception transforms. The next time someone speaks harshly, you might hear their fear instead of their anger. The next time someone hides in silence, you might feel their exhaustion instead of their indifference. This quiet seeing is the real miracle. You've learned to read their mind, not to expose them, but to understand them, to bridge the invisible gap between souls. And as you continue to walk through the world with this awareness, you begin to notice people soften around you. Conversations deepen. Moments stretch. Life begins to feel like one continuous exchange of unspoken truths. In the end, reading minds isn't about knowing others. It's about remembering that there are no others. Just countless reflections of one consciousness, experiencing itself in infinite forms. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of all. Soft closing breath, wind fades into silence. A final reflective whisper. Every mind you touch becomes a mirror of your own, and every mirror teaches you who you truly are.